All right, I'll try to keep this short because we've already burned up a lot of hours on this subject. I've been working on videos. This is Wednesday. I've been working on videos for after work for the last 2 days, and frankly, I'm tired of sitting in front of a computer. So just kind of a recap of what we had going on there. Like I say, I think everybody had a good time. Had several guys say that they wanted to do it again, so we're definitely going to be doing this again sometime, probably in the not too distant future. I don't know if we'll make it before summer's over, but had a good time, saw a lot of cool things, talked to a lot of cool people, and it's still not over yet. I got an email yesterday. Apparently there was a guy who couldn't make it, knew about the get together we had, but couldn't make it, and he started working in the experimental department in 1962. So he ought to have a lot of good stuff. But he wants me to call him, so I told him to let me get caught up here. And I'm probably Friday or Saturday afternoon, I'm going to give him a call and talk to him and see what he's got to say. And I've got a line. Well, I've made a contact now out there, and we were talking to him, and he said that there was a half dozen guys around there that probably wouldn't necessarily come to a group gathering like that, but he said he could get me to their homes and farms and whatever and talk to them one-on-one. And they'd probably talk on video, so I'm gonna have to make a trip back out there to do that. So yeah, and this whole thing kind of got gears turning in my head that since South Bend is literally right there, I mean, right there, 15 minutes from home, and it did not get, at least not that anybody's ever told me, like when the Charles City foundry plant shut down, like that was a big deal to those guys, and there was, even to this day, listen to the way those guys talked about working there was a lot of pride in that facility there, and when it shut down, it's like it took part of it with them, or part of them with it. And it doesn't really sound like the South Bend facility got near the fanfare, if you want to call it that got when it shut down. But there's also not really a whole lot. I mean, there's quite a bit of published information talking about when the Charles City plant shut down, because that's where the tractors were made. That was the big deal. South Bend was the tillage plant and planters and a few models of tractors that were considered overflow for Charles City, so they made them here. But it was the tillage plant. It didn't get the glory of making the tractors, so it didn't get near the fanfare as far as, I guess, like, I wouldn't call it media coverage, but like there wasn't anybody. You can't just go online and search for stuff and find articles about the South Bend plant when it was shutting down. It's pretty easy to find information about the Charles City plant shutting down. So it would be nice to be able to talk to guys from South Bend in the same way that we did here with the guys with Charles City, to get stories from that plant, because there's not nearly the information about the South Bend plant, which is kind of a shame, because South Bend plant is where Oliver was born. That's where Oliver started, with South Bend. That's where the plows started. Charles City came after the 1929 merger, when Oliver, Hart Parr, American Seeding Machine, Nichols and Shepard, there was more. There was a whole list in the 1929 merger, but that was when the Charles City factory came under the Oliver umbrella. So technically, there's more Oliver, specific Oliver heritage, if you don't count Hart Par, at the South Bend plant, and the South Bend plant was actually older than the Charles City plant. So, but that being said, it's going to be a little harder to do that because in Charles City, I had Al, who was my who was my point man and my contact to set everything up. I don't have that here. And I guess one of the lessons that we took from this was we kind of use the newspaper out there as a way to spread the word. And apparently, well, obviously this day and age, not everybody gets the newspaper. So I don't think that doing that here, especially not having somebody who knows people that can spread word by word of mouth, I don't think that's the best way to go about it here. In the last couple of days, I've been kicking around talking to the local news station because more people are going to watch TV than they are read a newspaper, even if they get it online. So that thought's been kicking around in my head of trying to do the same thing that we did, but get the South Bend guys, and that I could probably, as close proximity as it is, just bring them up here to the farm and clean a barn out and set tables up and do it in a barn. And we can get them around equipment. So that's a thought that's been kicking around in my head that might possibly be able to happen this summer. And like I say, I'd like to sooner rather than later, before the people aren't around to get it anymore. I got to make it back out to Charles City to talk to the individuals, and then I want to do another group get together out there. So we're looking at least 2 more Charles City trips sometime within the next year. Hopefully, fingers crossed. So this kind of started a thing, and I hope it can turn into more of a thing. And hopefully some more people from Charles City, because the newspaper that we used out there I don't think actually went to Charles City. I think it went to, I think they were all like, but I don't know. But hopefully guys out there will see the video of the employee meeting that we had, because that's what I'm calling it. I call it an employee meeting because it wasn't really even an interview. It was basically kind of a get together for them guys to sit around and bullshit, and I just so happened to be there with a camera to catch it. So yeah, and I really hope I can I really hope I can do something for the South Bend plant. That would be neat. Unfortunately, I can't go down there and show you the South Bend plant because most of that land's been redeveloped. There is, and I should go down there one afternoon this summer and just walk around and get video of it. There is still one Oliver structure standing. Actually, technically, I think there's 2, because I think Oliver had something to do with the construction of the dam at the Century Center, I think. But there is one for sure, Oliver building, still standing in South Bend, and it is ironically the Oliver Powerhouse, which got bought by a company called Rose Brick, or Rose Brick and Materials, and they actually fully restored it. I think they took like 15 or 20 foot off the top of the chimney to structurally stabilize it. But the chimney's still there, the powerhouse is still there. They painted Oliver back on the smokestack. I should, one afternoon, if I get time, just buzz down there, because actually I lied. Technically there are going to be 3 if you count the dam. You got the Oliver Mansion down there, which there's 3 things in South Bend. You got the Studebaker Museum, you got the Oliver Mansion, and you got the Oliver Powerhouse. 15 minutes from home. I've been to the Oliver Mansion once on a school field trip in elementary school, I think. Heck, would have had to have been. So I haven't been to the Oliver Mansion in years. I've never been to the Studebaker Museum. I always say I'm going to go down there, and I never do. And then I don't think I've actually ever seen the Oliver Powerhouse other than from the road, which it's way back off the road, so I've never actually like driven up to it. So you got them 3 things down there, 15 minutes from home, and never really, other than I have been to the Oliver Mansion once, but that's been years ago. So I need to try to work that in this summer for this, since we kind of started a thing here. So I'll try to work that in. It shouldn't be that hard, because that's like an evening thing. I could buzz down there, video a couple things, and buzz back, and it's not like it's going to take a whole day. So, and then, like I say, just lots of really cool, we talked, there was a lot of really cool people out there. I wish I could have talked to more of them. But, so, in the employee interviews there, in that first group from the foundry, there was that little lady there in the pink sweatshirt who worked at the foundry. I mean, when she first walked in, I'm thinking, okay, office staff maybe. And we had them with name tags, and then under their name tag, there was another tag with the area they worked in. So after she got closer, I realized it said foundry, and I was like, okay, maybe the foundry had an office. And then she starts talking, and it's like, no, she was actually out there slinging castings out of molds. She was in the foundry. But she was talking to Shelly, or I think her and her daughter came. Her daughter wasn't on camera, but she was sitting there with her daughter. And the guy that gave me all those pictures had put the envelope down on the table there, and everybody was looking through them. And Shelly and those two ladies were looking through them, and they were talking to Shelly, and apparently that lady and her friend both worked at the foundry, both started on the same day, and apparently the morning that they started, they thought that it would be a good idea to go get their hair done. So they went out to the salon and got their hair done, and all poofed up and everything like it would have been back then. And then the first thing they did was went and worked in the foundry. She said it was not a good idea to get their hair done the first day. And apparently, again, they must have talked to Shelly for a fair little bit there, but apparently, because of how long she worked there, she had been to the doctor recently, and she had never smoked a day in her life, nothing like that, but apparently because of everything that she breathed working in the foundry, her lungs are basically the equivalent to somebody who's been smoking 3 packs a day, is what they told her. So that's kind of why, in my opinion, it's important to get this stuff, because the people that worked in that kind of facility back then, it's just the way things were back then. It's not that they were doing anything unsafe. It's just back then nobody thought about the long-term repercussions, because that's just the way it was. And that's going to eventually cause long-term health issues with them. And we got to get this before those health issues start taking their toll. So, and then, if you remember the guy, I think he was in the last group, had on a blue sweatshirt. I believe his name was Dan. Had that nuts and bolts Oliver 1827 that his brother built. He didn't tell it on camera, but when he walked in and we were up at the bar yet, he was talking to Shelly and I, and he was one of the small group of guys there that was ROPS welder certified. So he welded all the cabs for the 4-wheel drives, and he basically welded all the cabs for all the whites. Not all of them, but he was on the white cab line. And he told me where to look for his stamp. It wouldn't be on the 4150, because that was before, that one was built before he started, but the 2105 should be in his range. And he said his stamp was C5, and he told me where to look, because that was their quality control thing. When you got done welding on it, you had a stamp, and you would stamp the cab with your number, and then if something ever failed on that cab as far as welding goes, it would come back on you. It was basically the quality control. And the 2105, he told me where to look for the stamp, and that is within his range of production. So one of these days when I start working on the 2105 and we get the cab off of it, gonna have to look for his stamp and see if he welded the cab on it. That guy, he was a hoot. He was a naturally born storyteller. There were several of them guys there. So, and then that foundry manager that was in the white coat, older bald-headed guy, it's crazy how much he reminded me of my granddad, my Grandpa Brewer, who has been my mom's dad. Just because Grandpa Brewer died when I was in 2001 from a post-operation staph infection that the hospital sent him home with and then refused to acknowledge. So basically, in my opinion, the hospital killed him, but I digress. He was an Oliver employee too. But yeah, the guy in that white coat, if you'd have took about 6 inches off of his height and put a little tuft of hair on there, he had that same big happy grin and the same kind. It was scary how much that guy reminded me of my Grandpa Brewer. That was kind of, I don't know, it gave me a weird feeling just seeing him. It felt like Grandpa was there in that guy. So, but I think I've already taken up enough of your time with this, and we need to move on to other projects. So I'm sure there was probably more I wanted to talk about, but trying to recall what it was here at this point after my brain's been burnt out on making videos for the last 2.5 days is pretty much, this is what it is. So like I say, we got some possible projects that add to this coming up hopefully this summer if I can work in the time to do it. And I can't thank Al enough for, he put us up in a house. We had no hotel bills. He had a guest house out there he put us up in. It was just him doing all the legwork out there and setting all this up. And if any of the guys that show up or that showed up see this, I really hope that if we do this again, you show up again. And I can't thank you enough for coming. It was a great time. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Because those are the kind of story you can sit there and read a book about the history of a company all day long, but those stories aren't nearly as interesting as the guys that were sitting there actually doing the work. Just the funny stuff, the dumb stuff, the stuff that makes you cringe because you can't believe that they were doing it. I mean, that's the stuff that I like the most. So this whole opportunity was pretty amazing. So hopefully I did it justice. I know there were several people when I announced it several months ago that didn't come right out and say it, but kind of made it seem like I didn't necessarily deserve this opportunity because I could have started farming with anything and Oliver just happened to be it, and I probably needed to get some other individuals involved that were a little bit more well known in the hobby. And the fact that this opportunity ended up on my shoulders, it still blows my mind, and I can't express how happy I am for it. And it still makes me grin. So, but with that being said, I'll quit taking up your time here, and I'm going to get this last video thrown together, and hopefully I got enough daylight left to start working on a project, because I got an auger laying over here to finally put the seed auger back together on a seed wagon, and I ordered a hydraulic bead breaker Monday, so that should be here today or tomorrow. So at this point, we just got to get some weather in our favor, and we got to start pounding out the last of these big shop projects. And then I got a couple small tree projects that need to happen. Well, first I need to get permission to do one of them. But anyway, we're getting too far ahead of ourselves. So with that being said, that's it for this one. We'll catch you guys on the next one.